Oh, hi. What's this? We're on. Turn that music down. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Live in studio, KPRC Radio. It's a Monday afternoon, and I am just been joined by a whole bunch of guests. Some people you might be familiar with, some people you're not. First, let me start by turning the cameras on. We're live on social media, but we're also live on the radio. So if you're watching us on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube, hello. I'm Kenny Webster. I'm a name you're probably familiar with and a face, obviously, since you follow me on social media. You may also know this person. Alexandra Del Moral Mueller is in the building. Alex, how you been? Get that mic in front of you.
All right. No, I'm doing great.
Alex, you are somebody our listeners are well familiar with, as many of them have gone out and volunteered and campaigned for you, and friends you made at Houston Young Republican meetings and places like that. But you have people with you our listeners may not be familiar with. Do you want to introduce everybody to them?
No, absolutely. So I'm here with people that are actually my good friends. So I know in politics you always say people are your friends, but these ones we ran really hard together in 22. And what happened was there was a concerted effort when everyone was very dissatisfied with the results to get our strongest candidates and mobilize a pretty big effort. So this Court of Appeals bench is very impressive, kind of once in a generational talent, and I'd like to introduce them. We've got Tanya McLaughlin in the blue.
So happy to be here today, Kenny. Thank you.
Hi, welcome. Tanya, I just turned your mic on. Now they can hear you.
Tanya's a former
Thank
prosecutor, extensive Court of Appeals experience. Then we have former Judge Maritza Antu. So she was our lone Republican judge in 22, set the standard across the board in terms of performance. And both Tanya and Maritza did something that's hard to do. Get law enforcement to back you and even force the Chronicle to acknowledge how good you are.
Why is that? Why is it hard to get law enforcement to back you? Why do you think that
No,
is?
law enforcement easy. It's hard to get law enforcement to back you while still keeping a Chronicle endorsement.
Ah, yes, absolutely. But
No, so law enforcement overwhelmingly behind all of us.
you were famously endorsed by the Chronicle.
That was not very easy to do. And I was actually running against somebody who was certifiably unwell. It was still difficult.
Yeah.
So it just made it. And that was about the most beat down endorsement you could possibly get. And I didn't even have an opponent that was lucid. So.
No, that's true. Exactly. Well, okay. And then let's introduce the rest of the people.
Yeah, and
in the room
then
here.
we've got Katie Boatman, one of the top appellate attorneys in the region, so really focuses on the civil side, which is so important, obviously, with small businesses, consistency and regulation. We have a bunch of activist judges who are making laws as they wish they would be versus which our legislature actually passed. And let Katie introduce herself.
Hi, Katie Boatman. Thanks so much for having me, Kenny.
Katie, would you agree with that explanation that Alex just gave? We have a lot of judges that think that they're lawmakers, and that's a problem.
Yeah, that's right. It's led to a lot of inconsistency in the opinions from the Court of Appeals.
Why don't you get the mic in front of you? Like, talk into the
Sure.
mic. There you go.
Yes, I would like people to be able to hear me.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree with that. We have a lot of inconsistency from the Court of Appeals right now. We need to ensure that we have judges who follow the law, and the three of us are absolutely committed to following the law.
There seems to be something a lot of people misunderstand is conservatives and Republicans, we don't care if judges are conservative or Republican. We care if judges follow the law based on how they're written. And that's something a lot of people seem to misunderstand, because liberals want liberal judges who will interpret a law not based on how it's written. But I mean, there's so many examples of this, but I don't even know where to start.
Let's look at the $1 bond. So legislature, because we had judges that were very different than former Judge Antu, with all this easy bail, soft on crime, revolving door. So legislature went to work. All right, we're going to mandate you have to actually have cash bond in certain situations. And so they come back and they do, okay, $1. Right. And so you cannot legislate your way out of this. There's not enough loopholes you can close when you have people that will blatantly disregard the rule of law. And it's tearing this region apart.
Yeah, it was crazy when it was $1 bond before the inflation crisis, but now
I know it, yeah.
that's like
You're basically just paying them.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's like pennies at this point. So that is pretty nuts, Alex. I agree with you. The three people here are Katie Boatman, Maritza Antu, and Tanya McLaughlin. Katie, why did you decide to run?
Well, I love Houston. I love our region. I think we have so much to offer, but we really need change at the courthouse, and we need businesses and citizens to be able to count on judges who do the right thing. I've practiced before these courts for years, and it's really been a big change over the years. We need to bring back consistency that we had before 2018.
I wish I had realized there was something wrong with that mic before we went on the air. It's a droopy mic is the problem with it.
She'll adapt and overcome.
Yeah,
That's right.
She's doing great. How about you, Maritza? Why'd you decide to run?
Like Alex said, you cannot and we cannot legislate the problem at the courthouse. What we can do is we can change it. And the only way we can change the problem at the courthouse is to have all of your listeners get out and vote for every Republican judicial candidate down the ballot. When I learned that we could flip the courts to a Republican majority, like you said, judges who are conservative, follow the law, don't legislate from the bench, don't have political agendas. Even though I've been running since 2018 to change the courthouse problem, I decided to do it again for that reason, because this is a big opportunity that Republicans have, and we need to take it.
Yeah, and I love that you explained it that way. How about you, Tanya?
Thank you, Kenny. It is a mix of two things. We ran in 2022 and we were so close that we are trying to pull all that momentum into this year. And when I learned that we could do that in these courts and that these appellate courts don't have one former felony prosecutor sitting on the bench at all, I'm not sure that has ever happened before now. And so knowing what we can bring and how hard we worked in 22 and that we can very easily, if we get everyone out, flip it.
How does that happen? How do you get a judge that didn't have any prosecutor experience?
So how these Court of Appeals work is they're majority courts. So you get 3 appellate justices on an appeal, and then majority wins. Well, in 2018, with the Beto Blue Wave, we lost all 10 of these seats to the current sitting Democrat incumbents. And so that means whoever on the Democrat ticket just decided to throw their name in. For instance, the seat I'm running for, place 4 on the 14th Court of Appeals, had been held previously by former Republican judge, former prosecutor, Mark Brown. One of the staff attorneys from the first Court of Appeals just threw his name in for Mark's bench, and he won.
And one thing that's changed since 2018, you used to have at least some sort of semblance of moderate law and order. But as you've seen what happened in Harris County, that's a disqualification to be a former prosecutor. You're not going to get through their Democrat primary. These are all public defenders, and they're decarcerationists. So it's not an accident.
That's such an interesting word, decarcerationists. Mm-hmm. That's like
That's what we have
like
here.
Antinatalists, the people that hate babies. Decarcerationists.
No, I mean, that's really how extreme the ideology is. It's what got my attention, and I think that's one of the big unifying things is the general public doesn't realize how they've heard about Soros DAs, but the one thing about Soros is he's just so incredibly efficient. He didn't stop with prosecutors. They took the courts. And they have, there are no moderate Democrats. You can look at
there
what's
are none.
happening.
Yeah,
No,
the moderate Democrats
not in judges. They don't exist.
Yeah, right.
Because
Exactly.
you are, as a judge, completely dependent on the party infrastructure to get you elected. They have very strict canons. They have very strict fundraising limits, and their party is chosen to put all their resources to get people that will enact that kind of most far left progressive ideology.
So I don't use phrases like this a lot. I always, every time there's an election, it always bothers me. People in the media say, this is the most important election of your life. This is the biggest election ever. But to that point, to the people that are in the room right now, if these women lose the races, this could be the bellwether to the state turning blue.
So, for example, people always ask me, Alex, are you going to run again in 26? I'm like, not if these guys can't win. We cannot go from Harris County winning some seats or losing by a point with all of the issues that happened, but at least being competitive, to now their rough math is they just need to lose Harris County by 5. And one of the things we don't talk about from the lessons learned on 22 is there were enough Republican votes that stayed home or didn't vote all the way down the ballot that we could have thrown all of those garbage people out on the street, and Republicans failed us. Yes, there were issues on the other side, but we should have had such a margin that when you look through the data, we actually won the persuasion vote.
Yeah.
And so it was so disappointing to look and see how many Republicans, voted at the top and left or didn't turn out And so that's kind of the biggest pitch that I have is we actually have the numbers. If every Republican goes out first day of early voting, votes all the way down the ballot, we will get our county and our region back more broadly.
I love that. This is a big deal. Like I said, I don't use hyperbole. I try not to sensationalize on the radio. This is a race that could be a determining factor on whether or not Texas turns blue and flips to a Democrat-controlled state in 2 to 4 years. If you're watching us live on social media, don't change the channel. If you're listening to us on the radio, don't change the channel either. We'll be right back in just a short moment.
We could certainly slow the aging process if aging had to pass its way through slow-ass Congress. Take another vacation, why don't you? Kenny Webster's Pursuit of Happiness.
Hey, to those of you watching us live on social media, we are recording segments for this afternoon's show, so just sit tight for a second while I save what we just recorded. And if you guys have questions for these judicial candidates, they're running for the Court of Appeals in Southeast Texas. I'm sure they'd love to answer them for you, so leave them in the comment section. And we will start again in just a few short moments. Everybody, we're back from break. Kenny Webster here, Pursuit of Happiness Radio, KPRC 950. We are 28 days out from the election, and I'm in a room right now filled with beautiful, brilliant women, which is very uncommon on this radio show. Normally, it's just me in here.
It even smells pretty good in here right now, which
It
is
is-
also very uncommon.
It is almost never like that. Alex is right. Normally, this room is filled with gassy, middle-aged men, but today, not so much. My guest right now, Alex Mueller, somebody that conservatives, certainly young Republicans, know very well in Houston, but also Katie Boatman, Maritza Antu, and Tanya McLaughlin, and they are running for Court of Appeals. And I guess maybe a good place to go at this point of the conversation is just ask y'all, you've chosen to live in Houston. You've chosen to live in Texas. You're conservatives, you're Republicans. And I think we all know Houston is not the city that it was 20 or 30 years ago. It's not even the city that it was 10 years ago. When I moved here from Chicago in 2012, this was a conservative, Republican-controlled county. And when I moved here, although the population in Houston and Chicago is roughly the same, when I moved to Houston, the violent crime rate was half of what it was in Chicago. This to me was, I compare everything I compared about my old home and my new one started with this. Why is it so different here? Well, for one thing, Republicans control the county. There's a legal gun store in any direction. You throw a rock in any direction, you're going to hit a gun range, a barbecue restaurant, and,
Tex-Mex.
a Tex-Mex.
Sorry, don't forget about queso.
Yeah, queso, obviously, yes. But
The ladies love the queso.
Yes.
But
Big queso.
for some reason that's changed. Tanya, why do you think Houston no longer has half the violent crime? I think it's now like a 2/3 comparison. Why is it going up?
I think the huge problem is we keep losing control of the county, whether it is in the judicial seats, the regular political seats. That is the difference. I think if we flip everything back over, the county will see an immediate change.
And it's just as quick as that. You think it's that simple?
I do.
How about you? What do you think, Maritza?
I think the same thing. I was a prosecutor, very tough on crime, but like you, I was a prosecutor when the judiciary was all Republican judges. And so from 2005 to 2016, when I was trying these cases in front of Republican judges, I didn't lose, and criminals were held accountable. People went to prison for violent crimes that they committed, and rightfully so. Things are so different now. Things have changed. There's less accountability, which is a huge deal for me. Less accountability. People are not being held responsible. People are waiting 5 years to go to trial while they are out on bond, and it could be anybody charged with murder, capital, aggravated robbery, sexual assault. So it's a combination of all of these things that are driving the crime rate up. And I don't have to, hyperbolize or exaggerate to anybody in Houston. If you are a mom like me or a young woman at night, you're probably not pumping gas at night. You're probably not going to Walgreens or Target at night. You're probably not going to the ATM at night. Why? Because your head is on a swivel. because you see every single day that moms like us and young women like us are victimized at random, and it's happening a lot more often than it used to.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. Katie, here's a question for you. You look at a case like Gerald Goins. We just had a case here in Houston 5 years ago, a year and a few months before the George Floyd thing happened. We had a racially charged news story in Houston that involved a police shooting. The races happened to go in the other direction. Black cop, white victims did not get the attention George Floyd got, sadly. It's really sad. These were innocent people that were murdered in their home. 5 years later, we finally get a result to that case. What are your thoughts on that?
And I'll take that one. I think the first step number one is it's 5 years, right? So one thing that I was always impressed about Maritza when she was judge, there were no murder trials that went over a year.
Right.
That's the standard. You should be going to trial under a year. Now it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And what's happening? They are reoffending and victimizing the whole time, while we have judges that are running legitimately candle businesses is their primary thing. Like you can
Wait,
check.
what?
Oh yeah, that's no.
Yep.
It's not made up. And so they hide, running from county judge. I'm like, I want to see who goes to trial. I want that. They do everything they can to hide the data that you have these judges, all taxpayer Lux funded, and they don't go to work. And why don't they? Because that's what the Democrat majority wants.
So
they don't want trials.
One of your Democrat opponents is running a candle business right now?
In the Harris County District Courts. It's very well known.
Are they scented candles?
I think they come in a wide variety.
She
I mean,
actually-
with the amount of effort, we
She
can
lost
get you that
her
link.
primary. She lost her
okay.
primary, but this particular judge during COVID, it took her 2 years to come back to the courthouse. And actually, the Democrats put somebody up against her and they beat her out in the primary. But yeah, it's a true story, and I wish.
And there's
it
many
weren't.
like that. Is the point?
Yeah, and the importance of our courts is that after the trial, if the trial takes that long, the appeal can also take that long.
Yeah.
There's a recent case from the Court of Criminal Appeals where they called out the Court of Appeals for taking 5 years to get a ruling on a case, and then that case has been sitting in front of the Court of Appeals for almost 2 more years.
That's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
That should be a crime.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
And especially for these families that had loss of a child. When you're dragging this out for years, I mean, we're all friends with April Gary. You are just putting such untold extra harm. They can't get resolution and move on, all because people are actively choosing not to do their job.
Right. Yeah. April Aguirre is a victims' rights advocate. She comes in here. She was on this radio show last week with Holly Hansen talking about
Big fans of both of them.
Love them, yeah.
Mhm.
The Jocelyn Nungri case. Just disgusting.
Heartbreaking.
And now we learn that the suspects, which,
Surprise to nobody, right?
appear to be guilty, appear to be members of the Trende Aragua street gang, which has now been categorized as a terrorist group. I wonder
Number one.
if you ladies have any thoughts on that.
Trende Aragua, according to the governor, is now number one organization in the state of Texas, and I commend him for his efforts to put these people back where they belong. But I'm from a border town. I'm from McAllen, Texas, and so the border topic is incredibly important to me. I'm a Mexican American, first generation, whose parents waited 7 years to come to this country legally, and doing it right matters to me. From what I've read, these two accused suspects, and they are presumed to be innocent. We
Sure.
have to give them their constitutional right. They are presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. Had only been in the country for a couple of months.
Wow.
And so, the procedure is that they turn themselves into ICE when they cross the border, and they're given either an ankle monitor, they're fingerprinted, and then they're released and given a court date 2 or 3 years down the road in immigration court. Yet another example of what doesn't work in this country.
Yeah.
So will they show up? Who knows?
It's a great question. I think it's pretty obvious to everybody listening that there's an immigration crisis happening. Right, left, conservative, liberal, everybody knows that. I noticed recently Kamala went down to Douglas, Arizona, and I immediately thought, Douglas, Arizona, where's that? I looked it up. Turns out they had a border barrier built there 20 years ago by George W. Bush. And she also traveled to El Paso, I think 3 or 4 years ago. again, one of the safer places along the border, not surprisingly because there's a border barrier. Maritza, you're from a border community. Do you have thoughts on that? Do you notice they never go to the bad places?
They don't. They don't go to McAllen, where the Rio Grande Valley, most people coming from southern countries are coming in through Mexico to McAllen, Texas, a tiny little town with 150,000 population that's probably grown about 30%. Because most of the migrants come into that small town. Never in my life have I ever seen anything like it. Imagine what it's done to my hometown. Public schooling, healthcare. It is, it's tragic, really. And I think what's interesting is that the governor is flying these people all across the country, and these small communities are complaining that they can't handle the influx of migrants. Well, imagine being from where I'm from.
Yeah.
Imagine facing this daily, and you've never faced it before. So I think that the vice president should head to McAllen, Texas, where the true border crisis is happening.
I love that idea. If you're just getting connected on the radio or watching us on social media right now, I'm here with my good friend Alex Mueller. Alex is one of my best friends in the local political scene. She and I recently did a panel together at the Texas Youth Summit with a bunch of other brilliant people, including Charles Blaine and Cindy Siegel. And Alex brought with her today 3 guests: Katie Boatman, Maritza Antu, and Tanya McLaughlin. And what can we do? These are candidates for the Court of Appeals. What can we do to help them get elected?
Houston
Alex?
Court of Appeals, if you've been listening, you understand the reason that you're not being covered. Local media does not want you to know this is what a Republican judge looks like, that they exist. And so Kenny's posted. We'll have him posted again if that's all right. Got a recent video. Website tells you all about the race. But any friends that you have, listen, if you don't know who the Republican judge is, that doesn't matter. Just vote down. I guarantee you they believe in the rule of law. They have the same values as you. And the other side, we've seen what those policies look like in Harris County, and it's going to be more of the same. And my last pitch would just be, as we've talked, every time you keep hearing about these really organized international terrorist organizations, I don't know what bigger pitch for the fact that we need judges that will hold them accountable.
Yeah.
You cannot have decarcerationists dealing with these violent games. You don't do something like they did to Jocelyn and Gary as your first time.
Right.
They have had a history of getting away with these brutal crimes, and they're going to keep offending. We have to get them to trial as soon as possible and put people on the bench that will hold them accountable.
That's so true. Look, we don't know if the guys are guilty. I'm guessing they probably are, but I'm not a judge either. Nobody starts with torturing a child under a bridge.
No.
You know what I mean? For 2 hours. That's a crazy place to start your criminal career. We could only imagine how many crimes have gone unsolved that are connected to people.
And how many
like
here
that.
in just Texas and Houston more broadly, young women, children, just the most extreme form of torture and abuse. And we have no idea how many people are coming in. But I do know that every few days I read a new story about a woman who was violently or child assaulted and killed.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm with you. This is a great movement right now. Katie Boatman, Maritza Antu, Tanya McLaughlin, and this is a young female conservative-led movement to keep Texas red and starting with the court system. I think it is a noble cause at that, Alex. If people want to volunteer or donate, where do they go?
You can head to votegopjudges.com. You can find information about us and the other 7 candidates that are up for election for the 14th First Court of Appeals. We cover 10 counties, Kenny. So if you don't live in Harris County, but you're in Fort Bend, Brazoria, Grimes, Washington, Waller, Austin,
Galveston,
Colorado, guess what? You can vote for us too. Educate yourself and educate your friends and your family. Get them out to vote early and vote all the way down the ballot.
Maritza Antu, you're on social media. You're on Twitter and Facebook and stuff. Yeah, I follow you. I knew that. Tanya McLaughlin, also on Twitter and Facebook. Katie, you guys all have social media accounts people can find.
Katie Boatman, you can find me.
Go out there and find them. Hey, I'm Kenny Webster. I thank you all so much for watching and listening. I love you all. I pray for you. I hope you're all safe and drive safe out there. We need you guys to come back tomorrow, bright and early tomorrow morning, for more of what you bought a radio for. Have an awesome day.
You are listening to the Pursuit of Happiness Radio. Tell the government to kiss your ass when you listen to this show.